I knew something was wrong the moment we sat down at that table. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't say. This was supposed to be our fix at night. After weeks of distance, cold conversations, and awkward silences at home, we had planned a special dinner at this beachside restaurant, just the two of us. I had put on my favorite blue dress, spent extra time on my makeup, even sprayed the perfume he used to love. But the second we sat down, he didn't even look at me. While couples around us were laughing, holding hands, clinking their glasses, I sat there, staring at the side of his face, watching him scroll through his phone like I wasn't even there. I cleared my throat. "So, this place is beautiful, isn't it?" He didn't answer. Just nodded, barely. I tried again. "Do you want to get some wine? Maybe something from the special menu?" "I'm fine." Short. Distant. I felt my chest tighten. I reached for the bread basket just to have something to do with my hands. The restaurant was stunning. Soft string lights hanging above the patio, the sound of waves in the distance, and the faint scent of salt water in the air. It should have been romantic, but sitting there, I felt more alone than ever. When the waitress approached our table, everything about him changed. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with long blonde hair tied in a loose ponytail, wearing the restaurant's light blue uniform. She smiled at both of us, but it was obvious, his eyes were only on her. His voice, suddenly soft. "Hey, what do you recommend tonight?" I froze. That tone, the tone he hadn't used with me in months. As she explained the specials, I watched him. He laughed softly at her joke. Leaned in slightly when she spoke. Made eye contact in a way he hadn't done with me all night. My stomach twisted. I forced a smile and kept looking down at the menu, pretending to read. But inside, I felt like my heart was breaking in slow motion. When our food arrived, I barely touched mine. Every bite felt like chewing paper. Meanwhile, he kept finding reasons to call her over. "Could I get more water? What's the dessert special? Do you have any recommendations for after-dinner drinks?" And then, it happened. I don't know if he thought I wasn't paying attention. Maybe he believed the noise around us would cover his voice. But I heard him. Clearly. As she leaned over to place our check on the table, I watched him lean toward her and say, "You're the woman I've always dreamed of." My world stopped. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was a soft, almost whispered confession. But I heard it. Every single word. I froze in my seat. I felt my hands go numb. My face burned hot, but my whole body turned cold at the same time. I didn't look at him. I didn't look at her. I just stared at my untouched plate, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might faint. The waitress paused. She blinked, then quickly walked away, her face red with embarrassment. And he went right back to scrolling on his phone like nothing happened. I sat there for another 10 minutes. In silence. Battling every emotion possible, anger, humiliation, sadness, disbelief. I thought about standing up and screaming. About throwing my drink in his face. About causing a scene right there on that beautiful patio, under those romantic lights. But I didn't. Instead, I quietly reached into my purse, pulled out my wallet, and placed a $20 bill on the table to cover my part of the meal. Without saying a word, I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out of that restaurant. I didn't look back. Not once. As I stepped into the cool night air, with the sound of waves crashing behind me, I realized something that shook me to my core. This wasn't just the end of a dinner, this was the beginning of the end of us. I don't remember much about the drive home. I know I walked out of that restaurant, feeling like I was floating, like my body was moving but my mind was somewhere far away. The cold night air stung my face. My heels clicked against the pavement as I headed toward my car. I climbed into the driver's seat, closed the door, and sat there. For what felt like an eternity. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, replaying that one sentence over and over in my head. You're the woman I've always dreamed of. How many times had I wanted him to say something like that to me, and now, hearing it, directed at someone else, it felt like being punched straight in the heart. I drove home on autopilot. The streets blurred past me. The stoplights, the other cars. I barely noticed. When I walked through the front door of our apartment, everything looked exactly the same. His shoes by the door. His jacket on the chair. The picture of us from 2 summers ago still hanging in the hallway. But inside me, everything had changed. I dropped my purse by the couch and sat down, kicking off my heels. That's when the tears came. Silent at first. Then uncontrollable. I buried my face in my hands and cried like I hadn't cried in years. Not just for tonight, but for every night I had spent feeling alone even when he was right beside me. I cried for all the times I told myself, maybe he's just stressed. For all the times I convinced myself, it's just a phase. For every excuse I made to justify the way he'd been treating me. And now, there it was. Clear. Unavoidable. I was no longer his priority, maybe I never was. I stood up and paced the living room, wiping my face with the sleeve of my jacket. I grabbed my phone and opened our message history. Dozens of unanswered texts from me over the past weeks. Little check-ins. Silly memes I sent to make him laugh. His responses, short, cold, if they came at all. I scrolled back months. The pattern was there. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from him. You left? Why are you acting like this? I stared at the screen in disbelief. That's what he had to say. After humiliating me like that. After making me sit through an entire dinner feeling invisible. That was all he could text? I typed a reply, then deleted it. Typed another, deleted it again. I wanted to scream. To throw my phone against the wall. Instead, I tossed it onto the bed and walked into the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face. Looked at my reflection in the mirror. Eyes swollen. Makeup smudged. I barely recognized myself. At 2 a.m., I sat on the floor next to my bed, knees pulled to my chest, staring at the ceiling. That's when the thought hit me. I can't do this anymore. Not another night like this. Not another morning pretending everything was okay. I grabbed a small suitcase from under the bed. Opened my closet. Pulled out just a few essentials, clothes for a couple of days, toiletries, my laptop. I didn't pack everything. Not yet. This wasn't about running away in the middle of the night. This was about giving myself the space to breathe and think, away from him. I zipped the suitcase closed and placed it by the door. Then, I sat back down on the couch, pulled a blanket over me, and waited for the sun to come up. Tomorrow, I would decide what came next. But deep down, I already knew. There was no coming back from this. The first rays of sunlight streamed through the living room window, casting a golden glow across the floor. I hadn't slept. Not even for a minute. I sat there, curled under the blanket, staring at the suitcase by the door like it was some kind of lifeline. My eyes were puffy, my throat dry from crying, but inside, something had shifted. I wasn't just sad anymore. I was done. I stood up and stretched, feeling the weight of the entire night pressing down on my shoulders. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. His keys weren't on the hook. His shoes were gone. He hadn't come home. A small part of me wondered where he had spent the night, but honestly, I didn't care. I walked to the kitchen, turned on the coffee maker, and stood there, listening to it hum and drip, like it was the only sound anchoring me to reality. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. Without thinking too much, I started to write. I'm done pretending everything's fine. I'm done feeling invisible. Last night was the last time you'll make me feel like I don't matter. Don't call me. Don't text me. The keys are on the table. I read it twice. Then 3 times. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't emotional. It was final. I grabbed an envelope from the drawer, folded the note, and slipped it inside. As I sealed it, I felt something inside me settle. I walked to the bedroom and packed the rest of my essentials. A few more clothes, my charger, some personal documents. I paused when I saw our wedding photo on the dresser. For a split second, I almost reached out to touch it. Almost. But then, I grabbed the frame, turned it face down, and walked out of the room. Back in the living room, I placed the envelope on the coffee table. I pulled my keys off my keyring and laid them right beside it. I stood there for a moment, taking one last look at everything. The couch where we used to cuddle. The kitchen where we used to cook together. The hallway where he once surprised me with flowers. All distant memories now. I took a deep breath. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. His name on the screen. I stared at it, watching it ring, until it stopped. And when it did, I turned the phone off completely. I grabbed my suitcase, opened the front door, and stepped out into the morning air. The city was waking up. People were heading to work. Cars honked in the distance. Life was moving on. And so was I. I headed straight to my sister's apartment across town. She had texted me the night before, telling me I was welcome anytime. When I arrived, she opened the door and pulled me into the biggest hug. I felt the tears rising again, but this time, they were different. Not tears of heartbreak. Tears of relief. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt like I had taken control back over my own life. That day, sitting on her couch, surrounded by someone who actually cared about me, I opened my laptop and started looking for new apartments. I didn't know exactly what my future looked like. But I knew one thing for sure. It wouldn't include him anymore. It didn't take long. By late afternoon, my phone, still turned off, sat untouched on my sister's kitchen counter. I had no interest in turning it back on. Not yet. But I knew him. I knew the exact moment he would come home. The exact second he would see the suitcase gone. And then, the letter. While my sister was cooking dinner, I finally powered my phone back on. The screen lit up like fireworks. 10 missed calls. 5 voicemails. Dozens of texts. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I didn't open the texts. But I read the first line of the most recent message. What the hell is this? Are you serious? I stared at it for a moment. No apology. No regret. Just anger. Typical. I locked the screen and flipped the phone face down on the table. That night, as I lay on the pull-out couch at my sister's place, I thought about everything. The dinner. The waitress. That sentence that would echo in my head for who knows how long. You're the woman I've always dreamed of. And now, the silence that followed my departure. For the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to explain myself. I didn't owe him anything. Not an answer. Not a confrontation. Not closure. He had made his choice. And now, so had I. Over the next few days, I started building something new. I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer. I updated my mailing address. I started searching for my own apartment. My sister stayed by my side through every step. There were moments when the sadness hit me like a wave. Moments when I doubted myself. Moments when I wondered if I'd done the right thing. But each time, I remembered that night at the restaurant. I remembered how small I felt sitting across from him. How invisible. How unwanted. And I knew there was no going back. A week later, he tried showing up at my sister's door. She answered. He didn't even ask to see me. Just stood there, looking tired and frustrated. Holding the letter I had left. She doesn't want to see you, she said simply. Then closed the door. That was the last time I heard from him. No more calls. No more messages. No more unexpected visits. Silence. And you know what? The silence was beautiful. It felt like freedom. I took long walks by myself. Bought flowers for my new room. Started reading again. Slowly. I remembered who I was before him. Before the constant second-guessing. Before the lonely dinners. Before the tears on bathroom floors. One afternoon, as I sat on a park bench watching the sunset, my phone buzzed with a new message. Not from him. From an old friend I hadn't seen in months. Hey, I heard what happened, just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Want to grab coffee sometime? I smiled. For the first time in a long time, the thought of saying yes didn't terrify me. I wasn't ready for anything new yet. But I was ready, for me. For quiet mornings. For peaceful nights. For laughter that didn't come with conditions. And as the sky turned pink and orange above me, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I survived it. I left. And now, my life was finally mine again. Sometimes, it takes just one sentence to make you realize you've been holding on to something that's already broken. If you've ever felt invisible in your own relationship, if you've ever sat across from someone you loved, feeling like a stranger at the same table, then you know exactly how this feels. You deserve more. You deserve respect, love, and to feel seen. If this story touched you, if you've ever had a similar experience, leave a comment below and tell me, have you ever walked away from someone who made you feel small? Or just right, I deserve better. And if you want more real stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because sometimes, hearing someone else's story is exactly what we need to find the strength for our own.